Hey everyone, it's the new and improved me here to talk about how Christ saves. Christ himself suffered on account of sins once for all, the righteous on behalf of the unrighteous. He did this in order to bring you to God. Christ was put to death as a human, but made alive by the Spirit. It was by the Spirit that he went to preach to the spirits in prison. In the past, these spirits were disobedient when God patiently waited during the time of Noah. Noah built an ark in which few, that is 8 lives, were rescued through water. Baptism is like that. It saves you now, not because it removes dirt from your body, but because it's the mark of a good conscience towards God. Your salvation came through the resurrection of Jesus Christ, who is at God's right side. Now that he has gone into the heavens, he rules over all angels, authorities, and powers. So where has Jesus been, and where is Jesus now? Well, Peter doesn't talk about this, but we know that he existed as the pre-existent Word of God, one with God, not created by God, but part of the Trinity. And then the Word became incarnate as Jesus of Nazareth, who then suffered and died, as Peter explains here. And then he says he was made alive by the Spirit, a reference to the resurrection. And now Christ is at God's right hand in the heavens. But there's a little detail that Peter mentions here that may make us wonder, right? What's this preaching to imprisoned spirits? When did that happen? Right? And actually in the next chapter, verse 6, he also describes Christ preaching to the dead. Now, according to Peter's chronology here, it sounds like this must have happened between Jesus' death and resurrection. And so this is the biblical support for the idea of the descent to the dead by Christ, or the harrowing of hell. The idea that in between that time, Jesus was actually doing something. Jesus' death and resurrection, you see, is good news even for the dead and for spirits who had been in rebellion. Even death is not the end for hope when Christ is involved. Christ's saving work will not be limited by time or space, by life or death. So what's Christ up to? Where is Christ? Saving, wherever it's needed. And we participate in that process while we're here. Peter talks about baptism. He says, it doesn't wash you clean. That's not really what it's about. It's a sign to God that we acknowledge we can't save ourselves. And so we trust in the one who will bring us through those storms. So whenever we receive it, salvation is always the work of Christ, because that is always what Christ is doing.